So at this point, we're going to move on and talk about the beauty of the Blessed Mother in Medjugorje. So the purpose of my sharing this with you isn't to give you a whole lot of facts and details about what happened in Medjugorje. I think that's certainly easy enough to find most of the information. There are several people in this room who went to Medjugorje with me, Father Matt, Joe, Diane, who else? Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Bob and Jill. So we had about 20 people that went to Medjugorje at the end of May. It was my first visit, Father Matt's third, right? Father Matt, your third visit to Medjugorje?
Yes.
Yeah. And Diane, you've been there 152 times, right? Oh, okay, 9. And so we have a really good group of people that went to Medjugorje. But just to give you a little bit of a highlight, it all began on June 24th in 1981. Ivanka Ivankovic was the first to receive the vision of the Blessed Mother as she was walking with her friend Mirjana. Both of them were 16 years of age at the time. Now they're close to my age, in the mid-50s. And then the next day she appeared to the other 4 visionaries, so there's 6 in all. And she has been appearing to 3 of those visionaries every day for the last 38 years. And the others received less visions. And so, never having been there myself prior to this visit, wasn't quite sure what to expect. Father Matt and I watched a movie that was kind of a documentary of a number of people that went to Medjugorje, 2 of whom were stricken with cancer. One was struggling with drug addiction, and then some other folks that went as well. And so the movie that we watched, the documentary we watched, kind of highlighted their experiences. And so I have to admit, as I was beginning the movie, I thought for sure that the cancer patients would have been cured, and the person who was struggling with drug addiction would have been cured. And then about 2 weeks after they came home, the one person who had cancer passed away. And then the other person eventually died as well. And I'm not sure about the person who was struggling with drug addiction, if they're free of that burden. But and so that was really the most I had come to experience Medjugorje prior to that, other than hearing the stories and reading about it a little bit myself. And so when we got off the plane in Yugoslavia, in Sarajevo, not Yugoslavia, in Sarajevo, we had a 3-hour bus drive to Medjugorje from Sarajevo. And so I wasn't expecting it to be this beautiful, you know? And so Medjugorje is kind of in a valley surrounded by mountains. And so these are just a few of the pictures of what we saw on the way there in the bus. So, I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful, you know? And so then we arrive in Medjugorje, this little town in what's now Bosnia-Herzegovina. And these are the 6 visionaries who saw, or who first received their vision of the Blessed Mother, as I said, on June 24th, which is, Diane, you know this, you can't answer. What is famous about June 24th in the church calendar? Anybody know?
John the Baptist. Yeah.
John the Baptist, yes. So on that feast, so Yvonne, who was our host, was telling us that they would get the holy days of obligation off of school. And I remember when I was a kid in Catholic school, we also got the holy days off, and we would go over to the public school and make fun of them for having school on the holy days. That's how we observed holy days when we were kids. But these are the visionaries from 1981. They were all about 16, and then Yakov, I believe, was 10 at the time. And anybody who's been there who knows the story, if I say something incorrect, feel free to correct me. But I think Yakov was 10 at the time. And this is Ivan today. Now, Ivan was our host for the week. And so he has a retreat house in Medjugorje. And so we got off, it's a long plane trip. It's like 8 hours and then an hour and a half and then 3-hour bus drive. And so we're all pretty exhausted by the time we got there. And Ivan is one of the 3 visionaries who is still presently receiving every day a visit from the Blessed Mother around 5:30. And so we got off the bus around 10 to 5. And so at the retreat house, there's this chapel. And the chapel, I'm guessing, seats about 50 people. And so we went into the chapel, and they had just started praying the rosary at 5 o'clock. And it's a beautiful recitation of the rosary because they have some real powerful reflections between each of the decades of the rosary. And so the rosary takes about a half an hour to pray, a little bit more than that perhaps. And the one thing that I was instantly impressed with is that whoever's in that chapel at that particular time when they're praying the rosary, they pray the rosary in their own native languages. And so Ivan, even though he speaks really good English, he prefers to speak Croatian. And then there was an Italian group with us there most of the time, so we heard the prayers in Italian, English of course. At one point I think we heard Korean, and a few other languages probably mixed in there. And so you get a really good sense of the universal church when you're praying the prayers of the rosary in your own native language. And that happened every day for the 7 days we were there, or 8 days we were there. And so after the rosary concludes, Ivan will approach this kneeler right there, and he will go up to the kneeler, make the sign of the cross, say a prayer, and then he will look up. It looks like he's looking above the crucifix. And so he would just be there in prayer as the Blessed Mother visits him. And so Father Matt, he always invites the priest to sit in the chairs right along the sanctuary. And so Father Matt and I, the first night we were there, we got to kneel right next to him at his kneeler. And being the curious fellow I am, I spent most of my time staring but not staring at Ivan, just to try to observe what was going on. And it was a fascinating, beautiful experience. And so he would receive his visit for about 7-8 minutes. And then after the visit concluded, he would stand facing the congregation behind the altar, and then translators would translate what his visit was about that particular evening. So we had our translator and guide for the week was a woman by the name of Ivanka, and she's not one of the visionaries, she's a translator for Ivan, going way back. And so Ivan would say what Mary told him in the vision in Croatian, then she would repeat it in English. Then most of the week we had a priest who would translate into Italian. And so it was an eye-opening experience to see that, to be able to give witness to that. And so after the first day of my curiosity kind of being satisfied in the visit, the days after that I just tried to take it in as best as we could. The other thing that happens is people will bring whatever religious items they've purchased that day or brought with them and lay them at the foot of the sanctuary. And while Ivan was receiving his visit from the Blessed Mother, she would bless the objects that were there. And so, it's kind of hard to top having something blessed by the Blessed Mother, you know. And so it was a really powerful experience to see that. And this is a statue that he has in the chapel. That's a beautiful statue. And it kind of represents, as best as they can describe, or as best as they can create, what the Blessed Mother looks like to them in their visits. And so I just love the serene face, the smile, the beauty. And so it was interesting at one of his visits, we get to ask questions every now and again. And so after one of the visits, somebody asked, what does Mary look like? And so he just said that the beauty that she is indescribable. There's no way you can actually put that beauty into words. And isn't that really, when you think about it, what beauty is? Beauty is almost indescribable when you get to that point. I think there are pretty things, there are nice looking things in the world, attractive things, but ultimately I think beauty is almost indescribable. And it's just a feeling, more than a feeling even. I know that's a song, but it's more than just a feeling. It's something that just kind of takes hold of you. And it's an incredible experience. And so that's just a little bigger shot of the statue. And so after our first night and just trying to absorb all that we had accomplished in that 45 minutes in the chapel with Ivan, and the cool thing was Ivan was our host for the week at the retreat house. So I mean, he was there for our meals, he was our guide, and so on. It's like, what a privilege to have one of the visionaries who's still receiving visits from the Blessed Mother every single day of his life to be our host and our guide for the week. And so, but that's what happened. And so the first full day we were there, we went to see the Church of St. James and to participate in Mass. So I'll show you a picture of St. James in a second. But this is a statue of the risen Christ. And so if you look, it's kind of hard to tell, but like right here is the cross, and then Jesus has come up from the cross. And so it's a bronze sculpture, hollow, I presume, in the middle. And there's a little miracle going on there. His knee, that would be his left knee or right knee, is exuding water all the time. And so it's not just like a hole in the top that fills up with rainwater and then leaks. I mean, they can go weeks without rain, and that knee is still exuding water. And so people will come up and wipe it with a cloth or whatever, and there are long lines usually. Now, it was kind of funny because as all these people were in line, and there was a long line behind them, I went up, and so somebody said, "Father, you can come cut in line." It's like, I felt uncomfortable cutting in line, but they insisted, so I went up. I really don't like cutting in line, but I was able to go up there and touch the knee, and it exudes water, you know, and so there's no explanation for it. And so that was my first experience there after witnessing Ivan receive his visit from the Blessed Mother, my first experience of something miraculous, and so it was pretty neat. And this is the Church of St. James. So there's a lot to say about this church. And this church was built, anybody remember, was it the 60s that it was renovated, I think? 60s or early 70s? It was much smaller, and then they renovated it and made it much larger. And this was before the Blessed Mother visited them. And so, I mean, I think the townspeople at the time were thinking, you know, why are you building such a big church? And now it's too small, you know? And so every day we went to Mass. English Mass there was at 10 o'clock. And so Father Matt and I and whatever priests were there were able to celebrate the Mass, and then our pilgrimage people went to Mass there. It's daily Mass, and the church was so full of people that they were overflowing outside. And this wasn't an off time for pilgrims. We're in the end of May, so it really doesn't ramp up until the summer starts. And so, but this is the inside of the church. It's a fairly simple church, but it was so cool to see. I mean, people were sitting in the aisles on the floor, particularly up in the front. And I didn't realize this until later, but they have a movie screen there. I presume they must have words to the prayers and stuff projected, or the songs on the movie screen. And then this is the shrine to the Blessed Mother there. I didn't realize until after I took a couple of pictures that there was a big sign that said no photos. So I honestly didn't see it. But again, look at the face on the Blessed Mother in that statue. You know, it's an absolutely beautiful statue. And so just going to daily Mass there, being able to celebrate daily Mass there was a real privilege. And to see all the people there from all over the world, English speaking for sure, but just there to celebrate the Eucharist together. And then this is behind the church. They have outdoor seating because in the summer particularly, they have huge crowds. I guess there's a youth conference that's held there every year. And I'm guessing that there's probably seating for 5,000 people out there. And I'll show you a little bit later that we were able to, Father Matt and I went to, and some of the other pilgrims went to at Eucharistic Adoration on a Friday night from 9 until 10, I think it was. And it was packed outside. And so it's remarkable that so many people are so attracted to participate in the rites of the church in Medjugorje.